Here's the uncomfortable truth. The cleanest long-haul truck you can run might be the one that still has a tailpipe. It burns gas, sometimes fuel made from farm and landfill waste, and it's messing with everyone's plans. Meet Cummins X15N, a 15-liter big bore that does diesel-class power without diesel-class headaches. No DEF, simpler after-treatment, real long-haul range, and a fuel bill that, in the right lanes, comes in lower. And here's where it gets wild. On renewable natural gas, the carbon math can swing so far that fleets are calling it better than zero. If that sounds impossible, give me a few minutes. I'll show you the numbers, the trucks already on the road, and why the most hard-nosed operators, the ones who don't care about hype, are taking meetings with Cummins Incorporated right now. Because if a 500 horsepower, 1,850 pound-feet gas engine can pull a 40-ton rig through the mountains and still beat diesel on cost and emissions, that doesn't just nudge the future, it punches a hole in it. Stick around. By the end, you'll know whether this is a clever bridge or a straight-up diesel killer, and whether your next truck should drink from a gas pump that might, on some days, be fueling up on trash. To understand how we got here, let's meet a stubborn mechanic from Columbus, Indiana, named Clessie Cummins. A century ago, he looked at engines the way climbers look at mountains, as challenges to conquer in public. He put new diesels into anything with wheels, then drove them into headlines. He blasted across the country to prove reliability, showed up at racetracks to prove speed, and sold toughness to people who lived by the clock and the odometer. It worked. Through wars, booms, and recessions, the name Cummins became shorthand for "it'll pull." And that culture, prove it on the road, not on a slide, never left. It's why, when diesel's future started to look crowded by rules, lawsuits, and climate pledges, the company didn't bet on one fuel. It drew a new map, an engine platform that could run diesel, natural gas, and, if the world is ready, hydrogen. Different fuels. One backbone. That's not an advertisement. It's a hedge against a messy decade. Now, the character at the center of our story steps on stage. A 15-liter, spark-ignited natural gas engine with diesel-like strength. The figures are simple and, for truck people, kind of shocking. Power up to 500 horsepower. Torque up to 1,850 pound-feet. Governed speed around 1,900 revolutions per minute. In other words, the kind of numbers you'd expect from a serious long-haul diesel, but without the diesel aftertreatment maze. Instead of the big particulate filter, selective catalytic reduction, and a teetering stack of sensors asking for diesel exhaust fluid, this engine breathes through a simple three-way catalyst. No DEF, no filter cleanings. Fewer chances for a late-night check engine to turn into a missed delivery. If you've ever eaten cold diner eggs while waiting for a region to finish, you know why drivers notice this. But specs and shop talk don't win trust. Miles do. So let's go back to our driver. He reaches the first grade leaving the valley, the trailer a wall behind him. He's hauling about 60,000 pounds, and the hill does not care how clean his tailpipe is. The X15N doesn't flinch. It leans on that broad torque band the way a rock climber leans on fingertips, steady and calm, and the truck crests in one patient pull. There's no drama in the cab, and that's exactly the point. If cleaner means slower, fleets walk. If new tech means, please call a tow, fleets sprint in the opposite direction. The whole bet here is that it feels like a good diesel to the person at the wheel, and on the right spec, it does. Here's where it gets wild. When you feed this engine renewable natural gas, RNG for short, you're not just reducing emissions at the tailpipe, you're rewinding them across the life of the fuel. RNG is biogas captured from landfills, wastewater, and dairy farms. Methane that would have leaked into the air gets trapped, cleaned up, and used as fuel, because methane packs a much bigger short-term warming punch than CO2. Stopping that leak and burning the gas can score a carbon-negative result in the accounting that governments use. In plain English, some RNG pathways remove more heat-trapping impact from the system than they add back. No, that does not turn a smokestack into a tree. Yes, it's real math behind the negative claim, and it's why fleets in credit markets like California are first movers. But wait, this next part changes everything. If you can make your long-haul emissions math net negative with a drop in fuel at the same station, you stop being a pilot project and start being a business plan. Before you call this hype, look at who's signing up and when. Full production of this big-bore gas engine started at Cummins' Jamestown plant in late 2024. In 2025, the market leader in Class 8, Freightliner, opened the order book for a Cascadia spec built around it, with production targeted for the summer. Kenworth and Peterbilt lined up their own long-haul models. UPS got early trucks, and JB Hunt joined a demo program with a major RNG supplier to rack up real miles, real fuel slips, and real maintenance hours. That's not a concept video on a trade show loop. That's purchase orders and duty cycles. You thought that was big? Try this. It means the infrastructure people pay attention because they follow vehicles, not press releases. So, what does it feel like on the road? Think of a good diesel you already know, but with a smoother idle and less vibration creeping through the floor. Step off is crisp when you pair it with a smart 12-speed automated box tuned for natural gas torque. At cruise, the cabin is just quieter. That catalyst in the exhaust stream does its chemistry without asking for shop time, and you go about your day. Simpler aftertreatment is not a small thing. It means fewer sensors. It means fewer forced regions that arrive at exactly the wrong time. It means a stack that's light on drama when you're heavy on payload. For drivers, that reads as less fatigue. For managers, that reads as a maintenance line that stops jumping skyward on bad weeks. Let me tell you this because it's the piece a lot of videos skip: range and fueling. Trucks don't need marketing. They need a place to fill up at 2 in the morning. Compressed natural gas, or CNG, already has a real network in the United States. Hundreds of public stations, plus private depots, and more sites now dispense RNG through the exact same pumps. Long-haul specs with large back-of-cab tanks can push well past 750 miles between stops, which puts it in the same ballpark as many diesel legs. Liquefied natural gas, or LNG, offers higher energy density in a smaller tank, but the public station map is thinner and more corridor-specific. This is the unglamorous part of change. Does the map make sense for your lanes? In dense freight corridors, the answer is already yes. In thin lanes, fleets either build time fill on home turf or they wait. Now let's talk numbers that hit the P and L. Fuel price volatility is a daily reality in trucking, so the only question that matters is the spread. On an energy equivalent basis, national averages this spring put CNG below diesel. That advantage swings by region and week, but when you stack in credits from low-carbon fuel programs where they exist, RNG can beat diesel on cost per mile, not just emissions. Then add the maintenance math. No DEF, no particulate filter to bake, and a simple catalyst that doesn't ask for cleaning. This is where downtime drops and costs flatten. If you're a CFO, this is the graph you stare at after hours. Fuel cost per mile and unplanned shop hours trending down together. But it gets crazier. Emissions benefits are only real if methane leakage is controlled. That's the uncomfortable truth hiding in footnotes. If gas escapes at the wellhead, in the pipeline, or at a compressor, the climate math suffers because methane is so potent in the short term. The counter is better monitoring, stricter standards, and engines that minimize unburned methane, often called methane slip, with tighter combustion control and an effective catalyst. Independent groups who study trucking tech call natural gas part of the industry's messy middle, and they're right. This isn't sainthood. It's an option that can be cleaner and cheaper today, while other tech scales up tomorrow, as long as the system is managed well. Back on our night run, the driver drops into a long descent. The retarder feels familiar, the gauges stay where they should, and the next station blinks on a mile marker sign. He swings in, connects the nozzle, and watches the numbers climb. For him, fueling is tactile. how fast it filled, whether the pump worked, how long he had to wait behind a municipal bus. These details matter because they add hours, then days, over a year. In rich corridors, it works out of the gate. In lighter coverage, dispatchers get creative with time fill at depots or plan one more stop into the route. The point is simple. No one can afford to hope fuel shows up. With CNG and RNG, the answer is no longer hope, it's planning. So, is this the diesel killer? Not quite, and that's what makes the story honest. Diesel is still the default for a reason. Great energy density, every truck stop a refuel option, and a century of tiny improvements. Battery electric keeps winning in short-haul and regional routes where trucks come home to charge. Hydrogen internal combustion and fuel cells have real promise, but the infrastructure is still the classic chicken and egg. The X15N thrives in the messy middle, the decade where best depends on your routes, weather, and customers. In that window, a big-bore gas truck can run with diesel on power, outrun it on NOx and soot, and, on the right fuel and in the right state, beat it on carbon. That's not a theory piece. That's where orders are landing. Let's get specific and compare. On power and torque, this engine is right there with the modern diesels you know, and you can feel it when the trailer is heavy and the road is rude. On sound, it's calmer, which reduces driver fatigue on long shifts. On emissions, tailpipe NOx and particulates are dramatically lower because natural gas burns cleaner and the three-way catalyst scrubs the leftovers. On CO2, fossil natural gas shaves a chunk off versus diesel. RNG can go much further depending on feedstock. On range, big CNG tanks deliver real long-haul legs. On maintenance, the story is fewer moving parts in the exhaust stream and no DEF headaches. If you want a one-line summary for your fleet board, this is diesel-like performance with a simpler tailpipe and a fuel that can be cleaner and cheaper. Here's a quick concrete example. Two trucks leave the same yard, both hauling the same load over 800 miles. One burns diesel, the other runs the big-bore gas engine on RNG. Both stop once. That week's national average shows CNG below diesel on an energy equivalent basis. The RNG site passes through a credit because of its certified carbon intensity. The diesel truck schedules a DPF service at month end. The gas truck's catalyst doesn't ask for anything. The difference isn't loud. It hides in the spreadsheet as a few cents per mile and a few fewer hours in the bay. But a fleet's profit is built out of quiet advantages like that. Now let's address reliability, because big promises collapse if trucks don't start on Monday. Fleets are stacking serious test miles on these engines in Class 8 tractors, paired with transmissions that were tuned to make natural gas torque feel natural. Early driver reports say the combo is predictable and confidence-inspiring, especially at the higher power ratings. Shops like the simpler exhaust hardware and the lack of DEF-related gremlins. And because this power plant shares a lot with a family that's been dragged up mountains and hammered across deserts for years, it doesn't feel like a moonshot. It feels like evolution. You thought that was big? Try this. The company didn't build this as a one-off. The same base platform underpins an advanced diesel for the next emission step and a hydrogen combustion cousin. That means a fleet can make a bet on one engine family and change fuels as the world changes, instead of scrapping everything when policy or technology lurches forward. If green hydrogen gets cheap and common, a 15-litre hydrogen ICE stops being a science fair and starts being a practical cousin to what you already own. If megachargers blanket key lanes and battery chemistry leaps, parts of long haul will tip to electric. The point is control, keeping options open while still moving freight today. Let's pull the camera back and read the market signal. Freightliner, the heavyweight in the Class 8 arena, targeted 2025 to offer the engine in its flagship Cascadia. Production begins this summer. Peterbilt and Kenworth lined up their own models for long-haul duty. Parcel giants and mega carriers grabbed early slots to try in real freight, not just photo ops. A national fueling player launched a demo program with RNG-powered Class 8s so shippers could test the math on their lanes. Orders opened, drivers drove, station maps updated. That's how an idea becomes a trend in trucking. Quietly, through paperwork and dispatch screens. What about range anxiety? On paper, big CNG tank sets deliver 750 miles or more. In practice, range lives and dies on weight, speed, grade, wind, and weather, same as diesel. The bigger constraint is refueling density. The good news, the CNG map is already real, and RNG rides the same pipes and pumps. LNG adds options on certain corridors with smaller tanks, but the count of public LNG stations is still modest. For fleets that love control, and which fleet doesn't, private time-filled turning yard hours into fuel hours is a strong lever. None of this is hand-waving. It's the actual homework fleets do before they put 50 tractors on order. Let's put dollars next to that map. This spring, national data showed CNG averaging below diesel on an energy equivalent basis. Price spreads move and regional curves can flip. But the long-term trend that CFOs like is simple: fewer dramatic spikes. RNG can cost more to make, but it often sells with environmental credits baked in, especially in states with low carbon standards. That's why fleets out west move first. The policy tailwind converts planet math into invoice math. Outside those states, it still pencils on many lanes because the spread is enough and the maintenance savings are real. If you want a back of the envelope, fuel plus shop hours must beat diesel's total for your routes. When it does, adoption isn't a speech, it's a signature. All of this sounds tidy in a studio. On the road, it's messier, so let me share the kind of friction operators actually face. A driver shows up and one dispenser is down for maintenance. Another pump fills slower than the last one, so he waits. A new station opens 50 miles away and route planning software quietly picks a different stop. The fleet's fuel card program needs an update to accept an RNG vendor. The shop orders a different torque adapter for a fitting they didn't need before. None of these are showstoppers, but they're the pebbles in the shoe you feel all day. The difference is whether the fuel map is thick enough that a pebble doesn't turn into a cliff. Now, the critics, they'll tell you this is just fossil fuel with a bow on it, or that RNG supply can't scale to serve every truck. The first point is too simple for a complex problem. Yes, fossil natural gas only buys you a slice of CO2 reduction versus diesel, and methane leakage has to be managed aggressively. But RNG isn't a marketing trick. It's a set of real projects that turn waste streams into fuel and can score dramatically lower carbon intensity, even negative in some cases. Will RNG alone cover every truck? Number. Will it cover enough of the sector to matter in a big way for the next decade? That's the bet. And while we argue, fleets are out testing, counting, and comparing. The trucks keep moving. Let's answer the question that keeps showing up in the comments. What about performance and MPG? Because natural gas has less energy per gallon equivalent than diesel, you don't chase MPG as a bragging number. You look at cost per mile and range with the chosen tank set. On that score, fleets see parity or better depending on route and driver behavior. Drivers report strong grade pulls at the higher power ratings and better cab comfort on long days thanks to less vibration and fewer exhaust events. The trade is simple. Tanks are bigger and heavier than diesel, so you spec carefully. The win is simpler aftertreatment, cheaper fuel in many markets, and the option to run a fuel with much lower or even negative carbon intensity when policy and supply line up. That's how you turn a clean story into a business story. So where does that leave our driver at dawn? The trailer lighter, the interstate pink and quiet. He parks at the receiver, prints the paperwork, and does the ritual walk around. Nothing smells like diesel. The stack isn't hot from regions. The engine tick-tocks like a big cat settling in. He doesn't care that the carbon intensity of his fuel is negative on a spreadsheet, or that a catalyst deep in the exhaust turned molecules into less dangerous molecules. He cares that the truck did the job with less drama and less cost, and that he'll get home a little earlier because he didn't babysit a warning light in the middle of nowhere. In trucking, peace of mind isn't poetry, it's profit. And now the question I promised at the top. Is this a revolution or just very good timing? The honest answer is that it's both. The technology is clever, but the timing is the masterstroke. While electric and hydrogen chase national-scale infrastructure, and while diesel meets tougher rules with more complexity, a simpler, cleaner engine that plugs into a fuel network that already exists becomes more than a niche. It becomes the control group for the decade, the thing you buy when you need to move freight now, meet climate targets now, and not bet the company on a charger that hasn't been built yet. When megachargers sprout and battery chemistry leaps, parts of long haul will tip. When green hydrogen floods the map at the right price, a hydrogen cousin of this very engine might take the lead. But if RNG supply keeps growing, station maps keep filling in, and your spreadsheets keep smiling, the X15N has a real shot at owning the early 2030s while the others mature. But what if I told you the ending hasn't been written yet? If you're a shipper who cares about carbon, your choice matters. If you're a driver who wants a quieter cab and fewer surprise shop visits, your voice matters. If you run a fleet and your customers ask for greener freight without a price hike, your lanes, waits, and stops decide the outcome. That's the suspense in this story. It's not a twist reveal at the end, it's the daily cliffhanger in every dispatch. Our driver climbs back into the cab for the return trip. He sets the brake, checks the gauges, and glances at the tiny badge on the engine cover. It doesn't brag, it just says what it is. X15N. Strong, simple, and, in its own way, sneaky. A machine that looks backward and forward at the same time. The past. A big, dependable lump of iron that will pull a mountain inside out. The future. A cleaner burn, a quieter stack, and a spreadsheet that makes sustainability feel less like homework and more like a competitive edge. Out on the highway, the sky goes from pink to blue. The truck slips into traffic. The story keeps rolling, mile after mile. Here's where we land the plane. If you're going to test this, do it like a scientist. Pick one lane, pick a driver who knows it well, put a diesel and a big bore gas truck on the same freight for a month. Track every cent and every minute. Fuel cost per mile, time lost at pumps, shop hours, cold start behavior, driver feedback. If the numbers lean your way, scale with confidence. If they don't, you'll know exactly why. That's the power of a technology built to live in the now rather than a promise of someday. And that's why, for a lot of fleets, this isn't a debate on the internet. It's a line on a budget that either moves in the right direction or doesn't. One last scene. Night again. A different driver, a different lane. It's snowing hard in Wyoming. He's light on the throttle, heavier on the retarder, and the truck keeps its cool. He stops at a station that's on his route because more and more are. He fills. He calls dispatch, cracks a joke about how he hasn't smelled like diesel in months, and pulls back onto I-80. No speeches, no drama, just freight moving a little cleaner and, for him, a little easier. That's not the whole solution for trucking, but it's a real solution for a real slice of it, right now. And for a decade, that's going to be decided by practical steps, not perfect plans. Right now is a very big deal. If you made it this far, here's the take you can test. A 15-liter natural gas engine with diesel-class power, an easy tailpipe, and a fuel network that's already open can cut cost, cut soot, and, on RNG, cut the carbon math to the bone, sometimes below zero. The map isn't perfect. The fuel supply isn't infinite. The future isn't settled. But the trucks are out there. The orders are open and the results are coming in. That's the story, not a shiny promise. A running engine, a working network, and a choice you can make today and change tomorrow if you need to. For trucking, that level of control is rare. And when control meets momentum, that's when revolutions don't feel like revolutions at all. They feel like a quiet night on the interstate, the road humming, the gauges steady, and the future sneaking in under the hood. If you want to see how this plays out, watch the dates and the details. Production already started. Freightliner's order book is open. More stations are carrying RNG. National price charts still show CNG under diesel most weeks this year. Those are the numbers you can check before you comment. The rest will show up on delivery docs and balance sheets. That's where it always shows up in trucking, at the places where torque runs out and mileage takes over.